in conversation with Sumant Sinha, the founder, chairman and CEO of Renew, one of the world's leading renewable energy firms. Sumant, thank you very much for talking to Money Control. The timing of this interview is amazing because it comes hours after Donald Trump said that the US would withdraw from the Paris Climate Agreement again. And it's one of the many executive orders he signed in the last 12 hours. What does this mean for you in the renewable energy space?
Well, there are two ways in which to answer that question. What does it mean for us in the whole space globally? It's obviously not great that the US is pulling out, having been the largest historical polluter, that they're pulling out of the accord. But having said that, we have an experience of what happened last time when they had pulled out. There may have been a small blip, but by and large, things carried on in the right direction. Right? The other thing is that within the US itself, now I think economics is driving the energy transition. And so more and more wind and solar capacities are being set up because they're economical. And I think therefore, even within the US, the energy transition is probably going to continue. And I think globally, the rest of the world certainly is going to carry on just like they did earlier when Trump was the president. So I don't anticipate a very substantial change. Obviously, it is not good when a country as large as the US pulls out of a global climate accord, right? Nevertheless, I think we will find our way forward. Having said that, when you ask the question, what does it mean for us? Now I'll answer the question, what does it mean for us in India? In India, it doesn't mean very much for us at all. It has very little impact because the Indian market is very large. All of us are focused on the domestic opportunity. We are now indigenizing the entire supply chain as well. So that is happening also. And so I frankly don't think that Trump pulling out of the climate accord is going to have any impact on us and our business in India. I think the Prime Minister set a fantastic vision of getting to 500 gigawatts. I think we are well embarked on that path and we will carry on.
Right. In fact, I was coming to that. We have an ambitious target of 500 gigawatts, I think by 2030. We are currently at 200. So, are we on course to achieve that? And what is Renew's role going to be? Because you are at 12, 15 gigawatt currently.
Yeah, so it's a good question. So we have 200 odd gigawatts installed currently. Now, over the last 2 years, there has been almost 130 gigawatts of new bids that have got auctioned out. Almost 80-90 gigawatts of PPAs out of this 130 have been signed as well. In addition, there were already bids that had happened earlier. So there's almost, I think, visibility out to about 350 to 370 gigawatts at this point in time. Most of this is going to get executed over the next 3 to 4 years. So there's a very good momentum that has built up. In addition, of course, the government will continue to auction more capacities. So my sense is that execution will pick up as well. And we'll get to about 40 to 50 gigawatts of execution per year. I would imagine probably by FY27. And if we go at that level for the next 3 or 4 years till 2030, we will get to 500 gigawatts.
And how much will Renew have at that
So
point?
as of now, our commissioned capacity is 11 gigawatts. We have another 14 gigawatts that we have won in various auctions. Some of those PPAs, half approximately of those PPAs have got signed. Some of those will get signed as we go forward. So we already have a total portfolio of about 24, 25 gigawatts. That's what we intend to execute over the next 3 to 4 years. And then as there's more capacity that gets auctioned out, we'll continue to do that. So, we have had historically about an 8% market share of all installations. And I think we'll continue to maintain that market share. And if we do, then, you can do the maths and sort of assess as to where we can get to. But I think we are looking at, fairly significant expansion from where we are right now.
Right. What kind of capex will that involve, Sumant, per gigawatt? How much will you have to invest? How will you go about doing it, allocating capital for this every year?
That's something that typically we have not talked about the future. But I think that 1 megawatt of wind approximately costs about $1 million, and a megawatt of solar costs about $500,000. So, do some averaging between wind and solar and, put a number on top of that and multiply it by the number of megawatts, and you'll get to a pretty sizable number. And that's, I think, approximately speaking, what we'll invest. Keep in mind, we'll also be doing batteries as well. And that is going to be over and above any of these numbers that I talked about. So those are the kinds of things. But let me put it this way, that the renewable energy sector is becoming a much bigger contributor to India's GDP. and is going to become a much bigger contributor to really just infrastructure built in India. And the other very important thing is that right now, power demand in India is continuing to grow at about 5 to 6 or 5 to 7% a year. And so all this new renewable capacity that we're adding is not even sufficient to meet the demand growth that we're having in the power sector. And so we have a lot of runway to grow faster and further, and therefore it's a unique opportunity where we're sitting right now.
Right. We've also seen EVs take off in a big way in India, at least in the E2 wheeler space. So, again, what kind of opportunities do you see? Because, one criticism against EV players is at the end of the day, people are charging it at stations which indirectly depend on fossil fuels.
Yeah.
But, what opportunities do you see there? Because that's only going to increase, whether it's in the B2B space or the B2C space.
Well, we are not in the e-mobility space, so I can't comment on exactly.
In terms of supply? Or,
No, so we supply to the distribution utilities, they supply to charging points and so on. Now, see, the reason I think that, people arguing that ultimately it's fossil fuel that is supplying this power, it's a flawed argument simply because you need change at both ends. You need the generation side to become green, you need the user side to become green. They're not always going to move in parallel to each other, right? That exactly what you generate is exactly what is going to get consumed. One or the other is going to go ahead of the other. And maybe the green energy that we produce gets consumed for something else, right? And maybe some other source of power supplies to these electric vehicles. But I think unless you have that electric vehicle ecosystem, you can supply the green energy, but where is it then going to go?
Right.
Okay. So you need both sides to develop in whichever speed and pace at the fastest rate possible. They may not always move in sync with each other, but you have to have both sides of the equation moving. Otherwise, we're not going to get an electrified economy, which is also then decarbonized.
Right. Renew, I think, is equally in solar and wind. Going forward, what other emerging sources of energy do you think will really take off in India? For instance, in the last few years, there's been a huge thrust on green hydrogen. In terms of Renew's plans going forward, what will your portfolio look like in the coming year?
No, I think our portfolio is going to be mostly focused on solar as the predominant source. Wind, to the extent that we require wind for balancing and for round-the-clock power solutions, and batteries, along with both, because the grid needs more and more battery solutions. We're obviously looking at green hydrogen and green ammonia, but the offtake side is moving a little bit slowly, and therefore it's taking a little bit longer to get off the ground. I think globally, green hydrogen and green ammonia are not taking off as rapidly as all of us had envisaged. In India, now there's been an IOCL tender. Let's see how that goes. These are small quantities yet. I think depending on the price discovery, we will probably see more auctions coming out in India. And that then will be the driver for the green ammonia and green hydrogen business in India. And of course, we intend to participate in that emerging sector as well. I think beyond that, as you know, we are in solar manufacturing. So that's an area that we're likely to grow and expand to meet our own requirements. And to the extent we have any overflow supply, we will sell that to other people as well. So that's how we're looking at our future.
Right. Sumant, there were recent reports about Renew planning to delist from NASDAQ. Any comments that you would like to share on that?
No, not really. I think that's something that is happening in the background, and I shouldn't say in the background. I'm saying it's happening, but no, I cannot comment on that.
Okay. We're just a few days away from the union budget, and CEOs whom we have been speaking to between yesterday and today said that it's going to be vital for the government to do something to spur investment and growth activity in the next 3 to 6 months, because the GDP numbers haven't been encouraging. The advanced GDP estimates too are underwhelming. What do you think needs to be done, and particularly in the renewable energy space as well?
Look, in the renewable energy space, that's a simpler answer from me to give. I think a lot is already happening. Maybe there are some tax tweaks that may be sensible. If the government is able to work on those, that will be great. We had this incentive for new businesses being set up, new SPVs being set up. The tax rate was lower on those. Those are the kinds of things that can be extended to get more investments going. But I think for the economy as a whole, it's hard for me to comment, because where I sit, there's so much growth happening and there's so much investment happening that we're kind of spoiled for choice a little bit. But I think in the economy as a whole, I think we just need to have more investments that happen across different areas. Consumer demand, I think, is beginning to slacken off a little bit from whatever I can make out from my
Yeah.
fellow corporate CEOs. And that is something that I think eventually has to begin to pick up as well.
Right. And I can't help but ask you about AI because that's such a dominant theme here at WEF. How is this being used in your business? Are you using it to improve capacity utilization, to track your capacities better? In what way are you using AI?
So we've been using AI for the last 2-3 years now. We've in fact set up our own digital lab. Where we are looking at various use cases of how to use machine learning, advanced analytics, including AI, for improving the performance of all of our wind turbines and solar plants. And there are many, many use cases that we've developed. We've, I think, been able to increase our asset performance by at least 2 to 3% over, what it might have been otherwise. So I think that's something that we've done. So we continue to work on different other ways of improving our entire capability.
Great. On that note, thank you very much for talking to us, Suman.
Thank you so much.